Namaste. You're listening to the Savannah Podcast. Join us on an exploration of Eastern spirituality, yoga philosophy, and conscious living for the new age. This podcast is a production of SavannahSpirit.com, where you can find a large selection of Om and yoga clothing, spiritual jewelry, and unique fair trade gifts from the Far East. Now here's your host, Ashton Szabo.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Savannah Podcast. I am your host, Ashton Szabo. I want to start off our show a little differently today. Instead of offering up a topic and diving right into a story, I want to take a minute to contextualize many of the stories we share and the role of storytelling in the mystical experience. Now, some of the oldest texts we have from India are the Vedas, and they're some of the oldest texts we have as a species. And they're a collection of texts that were revealed to ancient sages and seers. And these texts go on to explain, amongst many things, metaphysical truths about the universe and existence. They are considered to be fixed and unalterable. They're heavily concerned with the unchanging, formless Brahma, essentially the beyond, divinity that has no qualities. But these teachings traditionally are reserved for the Brahmin caste and for initiates. In essence, these teachings weren't for everybody. And that's where a group of texts called the Puranas come in. Now, these are stories. And these stories are meant to take the truths found in the Vedas and make them accessible to everyone. These stories explain the divine with qualities. What qualities may depend on the text and which deity is discussed. So some stories are about Shiva or Vishnu or the goddess Devi or whomever. And they are recognizing that all paths can lead to the same place. One person is going to be able to relate to the divine most easily one way, and another person might relate in a completely different way. So what we have are different stories. It's a little more challenging to speak about something that has no qualities. You have to get quite esoteric with it. But now if something has qualities, you can extrapolate, you can expand on ideas and stories and make things much more digestible to the human mind. So the Puranas were meant as a means to update or convey the truth in the Vedas so that it speaks to the people of the day. And that, in another sense, is really the function of myth. Right? They convey deeply mystical ideas in a way that the audience can relate. And not only relate, but actualize, to do something, to understand something from that story. So ultimately, the function of story, of myth, is to convey mystical ideas in a way that speaks to the people of the time. While we as beings are very similar to people who lived 1, 2, 3,000 years ago, our day-to-day lives are extremely different. Heck, the lives of someone in America in 2016 are in many ways totally different than someone living in America just 30 to 40 years ago. So a story that people could relate more easily to, let's say 40 years ago, might not have the same effect on people today. Or more specifically, how a story is told can entirely alter whether or not it's relatable to an audience. There's no right or wrong story. There's no one version that is the correct version and all others are wrong. A story's value comes from its relatability and its capacity to transform its audience. And all of this is a big part of what we're doing with these podcasts, and taking these stories that hold profound truth and making them relatable and accessible. In the modern day United States, we've been mostly handed mystical stories that relate to people living about 2,000 years ago. Right? They're much harder to connect to. And if you think a story is historical, then it becomes an issue of, is this right or wrong? Is this factual or false? And then we miss the most important transformative elements of the story. Or we've been handed stories that don't attempt to point us to any truth at all. They're just pure entertainment, cinema, movies, TV. And while I think there's nothing wrong with entertainment, because too, I think myths themselves ought to be entertaining, we're missing a great opportunity if our stories are devoid of this type of deeper message and meaning. I think it's part of the reason why stories like Star Wars and Avatar and The Matrix are so popular, because they point us to a larger truth. The philosophy in them might not be as sophisticated as the Vedas or the Puranas, but the attempt to draw us into a larger narrative, a larger experience is definitely there. I wanted to bring this topic up today because I think that storytelling is such a fundamental aspect of the human experience, and it's something that motivates and inspires me to grow and to learn and to evolve. And hopefully it inspires others to grow and learn and evolve. Anyway, having said all of that, you'll see a lot of themes repeat themselves throughout many of the stories we share, not for the sake of being repetitive, but because these stories will speak to different people more effectively. Amongst the many things I do in life, I'm a yoga teacher. In a yoga asana class, a postural class, I'm giving cues, alignment cues all the time. And certain alignment cues land with some people and not with others. I can say one thing and half the room totally gets it, and the other half not at all. But I can say the same thing in a different way that the other half totally gets it and the original half doesn't. Or perhaps if you've never taken a yoga class, so you can't really relate to that, think of how one person might say something to you that absolutely triggers you, that pisses you off or whatever. But somebody else comes along to say essentially the same thing, but they say it in a way that lands with you and you totally get it. If you've been following our podcast, you might find some similar overtones in today's story with many of our recent stories. The stories of Ganesha, as the ones found in our 3-part mini-series, and the power of wisdom and the intellect. Our stories of the goddess and the trappings of the ego. These stories are all here to teach us about the universe and ourselves. And today's story is about overcoming the trappings of the ego. The ego, which in our modern American culture is actually put up on a pedestal, is actually perhaps the biggest obstacle to realizing truth according to the ancient traditions. It is such a big theme in these stories because there's a constant struggle going on within all of us all the time with the ego. So let's dive in. Once upon a time, Lord Vishnu, the preserver, was floating in the cosmic ocean, asleep on top of his giant serpent, Adishesha. And as he lay there sleeping, a drop of honey came out of his right ear and transformed into a terrible demon named Madhu. And out of Vishnu's left ear fell a pellet of earwax, which turned into a demon named Kaitaba. So let's pause right away. There's this guy, asleep, floating on a giant snake somewhere out in some cosmic ocean, and crap falls out of his ear and becomes these two demons. Now, what's that all about? So it's said that Vishnu is always aware of what's going on in the universe. Even though he's sleeping, he hears everything that is going on everywhere. The good stuff, the bad stuff, everything. All the lies, all the manipulative stories and tales, all the falsehoods that people tell gets collected as wax in his ears. The drops of honey are said to be the human desire for wealth and power, comfort, luxury, and so forth. What the honey represents relates very much to the themes of the Ganesha miniseries in our earlier episodes of the podcast. Now, it's said once these demons are born, they start to drink the water from the cosmic ocean. And what I find interesting is that oceans, seas, large bodies of water are often associated with the subconscious mind. It's a theme we see not only in Eastern and Indian stories, but from stories all across the world. So what are these demons feeding off of? What's helping them grow? Well, it's the subconscious mind, the ocean. These are the patterns, the imprints, the samskaras, as they're called, placed into the deep recesses of your mind by your culture, your family, the TV you watch, your earlier experiences in life. Right? And according to many traditions in India, also your previous life experiences. So we have these two demons that represent these negative forces in our lives. And they feed and they grow when we are living from the subconscious, when we are busy sleepwalking through our lives. Now at this point, they're splashing around in the water. They're, spitting up water fountains with their mouths, kicking around, having a good time. And eventually, they start to wonder about deeper questions. Like, how did they get to where they are? What's the cause of the universe? And so forth. And as they're feeling and listening into these questions, they begin to hear. They hear a vibration. They feel a vibration. And that vibration is the vibration of the goddess. It is her seed sound, her bija mantra. They realize the power emanating from this vibration, and they go on to repeat the mantra themselves. And for 1,000 years, floating in the cosmic ocean, they repeat this mantra again and again and again, until eventually the goddess, Devi, comes down from the heavens and says to them, "Your worship pleases me, and you may ask of me any boon that you like." Boon is a blessing. It's a divine gift. So the two demons, realizing the opportunity, ask for immortality. And the goddess responds by saying that no one could be granted immortality. So the demons have another idea. They say, "Let us die only at the time of our own choosing." And the goddess grants them this wish, this boon. And the two demons feel as though they have outsmarted the goddess and gotten their way. They feel as though they're truly immortal because no gods, no demons, no humans, no one can kill them unless Madhu and Kaitaba, unless they themselves wish it. Now, in their newfound pomp and arrogance, they happen to stumble upon Brahma, seated upon his lotus, going about his usual business of creating the universe. And they say to Brahma, "You are not worthy to sit on that lotus seat. Step down immediately or fight us." Now, Brahma knew of these two demons and the boon they received. He knew he was no match for the two of them. So he runs over to Vishnu, who of course is still sleeping, and he tries to wake him up to ask him for help. But to wake him, he has to pray to the goddess, Nidra Devi, who is the cause of Vishnu's deep sleep, and to plead with her to awaken Vishnu. So, it's, "Oh, great goddess, you're so wonderful, so amazing, please help me," yada, yada, yada. But what's important here is that the first step in awakening is through the goddess. It is the goddess who represents everything in the world, i.e., our experience of life that is the cause of us falling to sleep, but it's through the goddess that we reawaken. It's through life itself that we reawaken. It's by turning towards the world, towards the goddess, that we ultimately wake up. So Nidra Devi hears Brahma's prayers and grants him his wish. And Vishnu wakes up, and Brahma tells him the story about what's going on. He tells him about these two demons that are trying to fight him and take over his job, and begs Vishnu to protect him. Now, up come the two demons, and they're still egging Brahma on to fight. But Vishnu steps in and tells the demons to fight him instead. And a giant wrestling match ensues. And if one demon gets tired, he tags his buddy, the other demon, and the fresh demon comes in to fight Vishnu. Or like old tag team wrestling matches, except in this case, it's 2 versus 1. So Vishnu has no one to tag out. Now granted, Vishnu's a god, but after, 5,000 years go by, he finally realizes that he can't kill these demons. But he's exhausted. So he asks the demons if they can take a break from their wrestling. And the demons assume the inevitability of their victory, so sure. They're fine with taking a little break. It's like the story of the tortoise and the hare. The hare simply assumes the inevitability of his victory, so he starts taking breaks and rests, which eventually gives the tortoise an opportunity to win the race. And during this rest, Vishnu finds out about their boon from Devi, from the goddess. So Vishnu, too, calls to the goddess. He sings this beautiful song praising her, and she is just super pleased. So she says, have no fear. I will delude these two demons with my Maya, and you should be able to kill them easily. And she says, let this be a battle of wits between you. And I like that because it's another example of intellect, of wisdom, overcoming brute strength. In part 3 of our Ganesha miniseries, it was episode 13 of the Savannah podcast, we see Ganesha using his intellect, his wisdom, to overcome his vastly physically superior brother, Skanda. Right? Vishnu is not going to overpower these two demons. I mean, he's a god, yet he's not going to be able to outmuscle them. He has to use his wits, his wisdom. So the goddess goes about distracting the demons with her Maya. Right? Think of like this gorgeous woman on the sidelines of a sporting event trying to distract the players on the other team. And Vishnu comes out and he's like, oh, man, you guys are tough. I mean, you are the best wrestlers I have ever seen. I mean, really the best. Wow. You know what? I want to give you a boon. Ask for anything you want. The demons are actually insulted by this. They're so filled with pride, so assured of their victory over Vishnu and anyone, that they respond by saying, how dare you? Do we look like beggars? Do we look like we need a boon from you? Ha! Boons are granted by the victors. If anything, you are the one in need of a boon. So go ahead and ask us for a boon. Ask for whatever you want. And so they fell for Vishnu's trap. Very well, I accept, Vishnu says. You two are most powerful and have no equal. For the sake of the world, I ask that the two of you allow yourselves to be killed by my hands. Right, whoops. Right, the demons realize they've been fooled by Vishnu, specifically by the power of the goddess's Maya. So they kind of scramble to try to figure out what to do. Their delusion that they were more powerful than the gods is an aspect of the goddess's Maya, of her illusory powers. And now these demons are left trying to get out of the situation they put themselves in. And all of this is still happening on the cosmic ocean. So the demons, trying to slither their way out of their predicament, respond to Vishnu by saying, you know, you're right. We are powerful. We have no equal. I mean, we're basically the best. You know, we're more handsome than you, we're stronger than you. I mean, truly, no one is our equal in anything. And we'll totally keep our word about the boon thing. But we've changed our mind and want to ask you first for the boon that you offered us. You have permission to kill us so long as you don't kill us over water. And they figured that they had now tricked Vishnu because, well, they're on the cosmic ocean. It's water everywhere. So they figure that really there's no way he's going to be able to kill them. And so long as they remain buoyed by the subconscious, by the ocean, they feel safe. That is to say, it's going to be hard to overcome these demonic forces if you are still living from your subconscious, from your patterns. So this cute little exchange goes on where Vishnu tells the demons to place their head on his thigh because, well, there's no water there. But the demons double in size and are like, oh man, yeah, we'd love to and all, but we're just way too big for that. We couldn't possibly even fit on your thigh. So Vishnu doubles in size and he offers again. And then the demons double in size again and on, and this goes for a while until the demons realize there's no escaping it. They realize that they're defeated. So each demon places his gigantic head onto Vishnu's giant man thighs, and he uses his discus to cut off each of the demons' heads. Demons often, in a way, represent the ego or aspects of the ego. And so you've got these giant egos formed from lies and falsehoods and desires for power and money. And they thought they could outwit the divine. In their hubris, their pride, they thought they could trick the divine. They thought they could trick their way to immortality. Right? With their enormous egos, they thought they were superior to God. It's like all of us. Our egos, when we think that they can outsmart and outthink the universe, that we are somehow going to figure it all out and be able to beat the game, beat the system, thinking somehow that we can escape the consequences of our actions, thinking that we can somehow work outside of the system. It's the power of Maya, the illusory force of the goddess, that leads people to believe that our egos are the masters of our lives. Right, that the ego can control and create its own reality beyond the influence of the divine. And it leads us into endless failure and repeated suffering. And that's the key distinction here. When we think we can do it outside the boundaries of everyone else, that the rules won't apply to us. And we're all the characters in this story. So yes, our wits, our wisdom through Vishnu overcomes these demons. But it's through and with the power of the goddess, of something much larger than our egos, that we can overcome these demons. Right? Vishnu doesn't do it alone. He's doing it with the power of the goddess. The power to overcome doesn't come from the ego. It comes from something larger. In this context, we'd say that something larger is the goddess. It's the active principle of the divine, the eminent aspect of the divine. So ultimately, what do we have here? Right, we've got Vishnu, the divine, sleeping on Adishesha, sleeping on Kundalini. Right, Adishesha is the feminine, is the goddess. Right, meaning he's asleep on top of this immense untapped potential and power. And what wakes him up? Well, the goddess as well, right? And why? Well, because Brahma comes along and says, holy crap, these two demons and their enormous egos are destroying all of creation. If they sit in the lotus and assume the role of Brahma, of creation, then all will be destroyed. All right, you let the ego rule the shop and it only spells destruction for all. Now, one only has to look at the current state of our world to see this happening all around us. The world is run by people seeking power and wealth, willing to tell whatever lies they need to climb their way to power. The response to this for many is to turn away from the world, away from the goddess. Life is too messed up, turn away, go back to sleep. Or we have this great opportunity to wake the sleeping dragon, to awaken not only ourselves, but this immense power of the goddess, of our own inner potential and the potential of the universe within us, to overcome the demons of the world and create a world of greater harmony. We're all sitting on this vast potential, but what do most of us choose to do? To sleep. Well, let creation do its thing while the demons run rampant across creation. Right? This story is inviting us to wake up into the world, to awaken our enormous potential and defeat the demons that would otherwise take over and destroy all of creation. There's some crazy stuff happening in the world right now. Some pretty massive egos are attempting to take over and create their own rules, create their own system devoid of their connection with everyone and everything. And it's literally destroying the world. We need people to wake up, to get active in the world, to overcome the influences of the devious aspects, the demonic aspects of the subconscious pattern mind, and create a more balanced and a harmonious world. We've got to be active, though, awake. We can't hide behind a computer screen or off in a cave somewhere. We've got to participate in the world with the goddess, with the experience of living and with life. And with that, through that, restore the balance of the world. That's it for our show today. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you tune in again for our next show. And please subscribe to our channel on iTunes, leave a rating and a review to let us know what you think. And as always, big thank you to Zach Cooper, our sound engineer, and to Savannah for making these podcasts possible. I am your host, Ashton Szabo, and you've been listening to the Savannah Podcast. For everyone out there, I hope you all have a deeply present moment. Namaste.
You've been listening to the Savannah Podcast. To find out more about Savannah, go to savannahspirit.com or follow Savannah on Facebook at facebook.com/Savannah Spirit. For daily inspiration, check out our blog at savannaeast.com. Be sure to join us next week for a new episode, and thank you for listening to the Savannah Podcast.